This is footage of a 23-year-old South Korean woman named Jung walking excitedly in hopes to catch a cab to the airport for her first international flight. Except, it isn't. And as a matter of fact, it couldn't be further from the truth. Despite her giddish walk and cheerful facade, the contents of that particular suitcase contained the mutilated body of a 26-year-old South Korean woman. But before we get into today's story, if you are a fan of the true dark and mysterious tales, then make sure to like this video and subscribe, as it really helps out a beginner YouTuber channel like myself. So without further ado, let's get into today's story. The woman in the CCTV footage, Jung Yoo-Jung, was a 23-year-old South Korean woman who lived in the province of Busan in South Korea. One could say that Jung's upbringing was spectacularly unremarkable. It is known that Jung's mother left her when she was only 2 years old due to her parents' divorce, and when she was 6 years old, her father was involved in a criminal case and was incarcerated, and so she ended up being raised primarily by her grandfather. The family suffered from great financial difficulties and grinded their days out by receiving basic living expenses from the government. Also, in a country where excelling in academics is almost regarded as a normal expectation, she suffered from terrible grades as well. And as unremarkable as she was, she eventually failed to be admitted to a university. She also failed the civic service exam, which was an exam you must pass to work in the South Korean government, and continuously failed to find a job. Her high school friends, or rather classmates, described her as an extremely antisocial girl with absolutely no social presence. After graduation, she barely kept in touch with any of her alumni, and her loneliness intensified. She would spend the next 5 years after graduation unemployed and also studying for the civil service exam, in which she was ultimately unsuccessful. When her phone records were later investigated, it revealed that she had almost nobody in her contact list. She was a financially struggling, antisocial, and lonely girl. And during this time is when she had become the so-called true crime fanatic. She devoured hours upon hours reading books and novels about serial killers and the methods to their particular killings. She binged on an alarming number of Korea true crime TV shows and even developed obsessions with specific notorious serial killers. It was around this time, several months before the CCTV footage, where her loneliness really intensified, causing her degenerate fantasies to reach an unfathomable new level. She had begun to make several worrying searches online, like how to murder someone, how to murder without a body, and also the perfect murder. She was absolutely determined and convinced to commit the perfect murder. And in order to commit the perfect murder, she concluded that because there would be no personal motive, it made absolute sense to target someone randomly. However, with the social skills of a worm, that was virtually impossible. So to pull this off, she had to get creative. And so she decided to rely on the internet and download a popular tutoring app. She then pretended to be a parent who was looking for an English teacher who could tutor her child. And unfortunately, on May 24th of 2023, Jung was paired with a promising teacher, a 26-year-old South Korean woman. And because the laws of South Korea does not allow the names of the victims to be released, I will refer to her as Lee. When Jung was paired with Lee, Jung told Lee that she would send her non-existent fake child to her home for a tutor session, and Lee accepted the offer. After confirming the tutor arrangements, Jung proceeded to purchase a school uniform online. And on May 26, 2023, only 2 days after the two were paired up, Jung scheduled to meet Lee, where she pretended to be her fake child by disguising herself for the school uniform she purchased and sliding a knife into one of her pockets. She then made her way to Lee's house. Now, Jung was only 4 feet 9 inches tall, so when they finally met at Lee's home, she did not question the authenticity of Jung's age, and rather welcomed her home with open arms. After entering the home and learning that Lee lived alone, Jung brandished the knife that she had been hiding under her pocket and began violently stabbing her in the neck and chest a total of 111 times. It was also revealed that Jung stabbed Lee's palm several times after she had stopped resisting, and had also cut off relevant body parts to avoid identification. And after she was dead, she proceeded to the next stage of her deviant plan. Jung then traveled back to her home just after midnight and picked up a suitcase. She also made a stop at a local supermarket, purchased knives, locks, zip ties, bleach, and some plastic bags, and then returned to Lee's home. She then dismembered her body into multiple pieces and placed some of them in the suitcase she brought from her home. And at approximately 3 a.m. in the morning of May 27th of 2023, she grabbed the very suitcase that contained the dismembered body parts of Lee, called for a taxi, and asked to be dropped off near a wooded area. And sure enough, the taxi came, picked her up, and dropped her off at the wooded areas of Nakdong River. Now, Nakdong River is a notorious river for dumping bodies for criminals. However, as Jung was getting off the taxi, and unbeknownst to her, the taxi driver saw what looked like blood leaking from the suitcase and into his carpet. He didn't mention anything until she had completely exited the vehicle, in which case he drove off quickly, confirmed that it was indeed blood what's been leaking from the suitcase, and notified the police. Following the call to the police, Jung was arrested immediately, and near the Nakdong River, they found the mutilated body of Lee dumped in the riverside. However, this isn't actually true. The way in which Jung was caught has been widely misinformed. During my research, I've seen a lot of videos that have been explaining this case incorrectly, so I wanted to take the time to correct any information that may have been misspread. Although the cab driver was the one who in fact alerted the police, he didn't actually see any bloodstains on the suitcase. When Jung first boarded the taxi, the driver assumed that she was just a solo traveler with a suitcase. However, with an odd request to be dropped off near a wooded area only heightened his suspicion. He did in fact drop her off near the Nakdong River, but coincidentally remained idle at the same location where she was dropped off. After about 20 minutes, she had returned, however this time with a noticeably lighter suitcase. At this point, the driver was certain that something was wrong, so he would finish the trip and notify the police of a strange encounter with his passenger. The police were immediately sent to search the area where they discovered Lee's mutilated body near the Nakdong River and Hwangsan Culture and Sports Park. And instead of throwing the suitcase away, she brought it back with her. Hence, the blood was found when the police arrested her. And police say that when she disposed of Lee's body, Jung meticulously retrieved Lee's phone, her ID, and wallet, hinting her attempt to commit the perfect murder. And when Jung was arrested, the police on the scene discovered bloodstains. And out of nowhere, Jung started complaining that she was in excruciating pain and insisted that she needs to be hospitalized immediately. And when questioned about it, Jung responded by telling the police that it was actually her own blood. The police, kind of dumbfounded by this odd and random complaint of Jung, decided to play along with her story and took her to the hospital. And when they arrived, Jung started explaining to the doctors that she had actually killed her own child because of the hardships that she had to go through in life, implying that she had undergone a miscarriage. And now with this odd confession of Jung, the hospital immediately found a gynecologist and performed an examination. The results of the examination proved her story to be false, and that it was just a lousy, pathetic excuse to buy her more time. She was arrested immediately in the hospital and jailed until further trial. And through months of court trials, on the 24th of November of 2023, the verdict had arrived. Although the prosecution sought for the death penalty for Jung, she was sentenced to life imprisonment. And what's interesting about this case is that prior to this incident, Jung had a pristinely clean criminal record. She initially denied all allegations to the murder. However, shortly after, she ultimately confessed that she had the dreams of committing the perfect murder. In Jung's final statement, she cried profusely, begging for another chance to become a new person.
살인 충동을 혹시 언제부터 느끼신 걸까요?
피해자는 유가족께 할 말 없습니까?
피해자와 유가족분들에게 저는 진심으로 죄송합니다.
살해 후에 여러 차례 집을 오가셨는데 혹시 이유가 있었을까요?
실종 사건으로 위장하려고 했습니까?
제정신이 아니었던 것 같습니다. 죄송합니다.